Chapter 1505. Especially her son, who was about to take the imperial examinations. In the future, would there be a time when the two of them, mother and son, would stand together? Lin Yuexiang was so excited that she was about to faint. Her life was really getting more and more exciting. Thank you, His Highness, for showing her a different world. Women didn't have to revolve around their father and children. They could also rely on their own talents to do what men did. In fact, she could even do it better. Yun Buxiu could feel that Lin Yuexiang was different in that instant. 3 years ago, when he saw Lin Yuexiang, she was just a village woman who was filled with anger and only wanted to seek justice and punish Lu Qing. Before Tangwa said those words, Lin Yuexiang was just a woman who had changed after 3 years. She didn't look like an ordinary woman. Now, Lin Yuexiang truly had her own soul. She was no longer the person who only wanted to sue Lu Qing. She had a goal, a pursuit, and her own open life. She might even have a meteoric rise in the future. And suing Lu Qing was just a small matter in her life. The person who changed all of this was the person he couldn't wait to hold in the palm of his hand. He loved her dearly. He loved her smile, her voice, and everything about her, including her coldness and heartlessness. He even found her mocking and ridiculing to be very cute. He must have gone crazy or been poisoned. There was no cure in the world. It seemed that he couldn't find anything about her that he didn't like. Putting aside the fact that she didn't want to marry him, she was actually very good to him. How good was she? So good that he thought that she would agree to marry him in the next moment. But he knew that it was an illusion. In this life, they couldn't be husband and wife. He didn't complain at all. He only felt lucky. Lucky that he was so persistent that he could stay by her side, look at her, like her, and experience her good points. She was already so dazzling. She could actually make another woman who was stuck in a quagmire become so dazzling. This was her ability. The woman he liked was extraordinary. State Preceptor? Yun Buxiu was awakened by Tangwa's voice and returned to her senses. Your Highness, you're distracted. What are you thinking about? I'm thinking about your Highness, Yun Buxiu said bluntly, not hiding his thoughts at all. Not getting married didn't mean that he couldn't confess his feelings. And she didn't seem to be disgusted by such things. What do you want me to do? It's because your Highness is too good. The more I think about it, the more I fall in love with you. System, damn it, so mushy. Your image of this man has collapsed again. Cloud invisibility. I don't know this person. He's not my young master. He must have been possessed by some evil spirit. State Preceptor, when I first met you, you were at least a calm and collected expert. How did you become so glib and indecent after more than 10 years? Could it be that when an expert falls into the mortal world, he can also be contaminated by the mortal world? The mortal world cannot disturb me. Only your Highness can. System. Oh my God. I can't take it. He thought that if the two of them didn't get married, he wouldn't eat her. How could he forget that even if they didn't get married and weren't together, there would still be dog food? State Preceptor, you've changed? I've changed for your Highness. I'm willing to do so. As long as your Highness doesn't mind, I won't stop nagging. Tangwa sat at the side with a smile and said, State Preceptor, you have another skill? Chapter 1506. What skill? In addition to divining the weather, I also know how to cure diseases. Now, I can even speak to make people happy. Yun Bun was happy after hearing this. Does your Highness think it's good or bad? Of course it's good. If it can make people happy, then it's good. Who doesn't want to hear it? Then I'll say it to your Highness every day. Okay? Tangwa smiled and said, Aren't you afraid of tiring your tongue? As long as your Highness is willing to listen, my endless tongue will never be tired. System. No, I'm so full. Yunbun, too full. Ingzhu, can I not listen? Alas, it was because she saw the State Preceptor's feelings for her Highness that she ruined her life. Now, she couldn't help but compare every man to the State Preceptor. It wasn't that these men were bad, but she didn't agree with many of their views. For example, the scholars here all believe that women should help their husbands and raise their children. Many of them thought that the more sons they had, the better. Poor men might only be willing to marry her and not take concubines. That was because they were poor and couldn't afford to raise them. She was the personal maid of the first princess, So why should she marry such a person and waste her life? Rich men, children of small officials, had more rules. As the head wife, she had to give birth to a son to stabilize her position. Regardless of whether she could give birth to a son, these men would definitely take concubines. At this age, there must be several bedwarmers. She was also envious of a couple who could be together forever. Both of them liked each other and had children together. When their feelings reached a certain level, they would happily get married and raise children together for the rest of their lives. Even if she was the head maid of the first princess, her status wasn't low and she could marry into a good family. In these years, there were many people who wanted to marry her. But she didn't want to live such a life. Since Her Highness was in front of her, she was more willing to serve Her Highness. Why should she live such an uncomfortable life? Like now, she was traveling around. If she really got married, she would never be able to take a step out of the imperial city. How could she see the beauty of this world? Spending all day in the house, fighting for affection and scheming against each other. Just the thought of such a life was incomparably vexing. Since she had a choice, she would naturally choose the most comfortable day. My young lord wasn't like this before. He used to be a man of few words and was indifferent to outsiders. He wasn't like this at all. Even I can't describe him. Cloud Village looked at Ingzhu's complicated expression and couldn't help but chime in. Ingzhu came back to her senses and said, His Highness has always been like this, and I think it's very good. His Highness' way of thinking can't be wrong. Cloud Village, how are we supposed to talk about this? There's no common topic at all. She's a girl who's protective of her master. Your Highness is indeed a rare woman, so it's not surprising that young master fell into your Highness' hands. Cloud Village continued. Ingzhu said proudly, naturally, not to mention the northern summer country, even in the surrounding countries. Would you be able to find a girl more outstanding than my Highness? He has a noble status, is full of talent, and cares about the common people. Who can compare to him? Cloud, are you that confident? But thinking about it, it seemed to be the case. If young master can marry Her Highness, he will definitely be very happy. Ingzhu was unhappy. My Highness said that he would never get married in this lifetime. If anyone forces her, she will definitely throw them out. Chapter 1507. Then I'm sorry for your infatuation. So what if I'm infatuated? Does Her Highness have to marry anyone who is infatuated with her? You're really a blockhead. You're not even half as good as your young master. No wonder you're not young anymore. You're not favored by girls. It turns out that your brain is not good. It's really tiring to talk to you. Ingzhu coldly snorted and turned away. Cloud, what is this? Isn't he just looking for a topic to talk about? Sure enough, the maids around Her Highness the Grand Princess are also difficult to please. He can't learn from his young master, shamelessly following a woman every day and saying all kinds of sweet words. He, Cloud, likes idle clouds and wild cranes. He doesn't like romantic relationships. Although he is already 30 years old, he still hasn't held a girl's hand. But that's because he doesn't want to. If he wants to, there are many girls who are willing to be held by him. The next day, the group set off to return to the imperial city. During this period, when passing through various towns, Ingzhu would always buy local snacks and bring them to the carriage. Cloud subconsciously followed her, apparently forgetting that he thought about it yesterday. He won't shamelessly follow her every day. Why are you following me? This is a remote town, you're a girl. What if something happens to you? Cloud looked at Ingzhu's suspicious eyes and quickly said, If something happens to you, Her Highness will definitely be sad. And when Her Highness is sad, won't young master be even more sad? So, in order to not be sad, I have to protect you well. Well, you can follow me. Cloud, I'm telling you, I'm not interested in people like you. Don't think too much. Come on, Ingzhu, you're almost 30 years old. I don't like people like you. If I like someone, I'll definitely like someone young and beautiful. Ingzhu was angry. What women are most afraid of is being called old. Get out of here. I won't. Tanghua lifted the curtain of the carriage and just happened to see the two arguing. She couldn't help but smile. Of course, it was just a smile. Between Ingzhu and Cloud, she never thought of intervening. Let nature take its course. If they are destined to be together, then they will be together. If not, then there's no need to force it. As long as she is here, Ingzhu's life will not be bad. After 2 months, the group returned to the imperial city. LV Yufan started to get busy. She started to prepare for the exam and spent the whole day reading books. Lin Yuexiang, on the other hand, was thrown to the crop field by Tanghua, and she was put in charge of the matters under her. Whether or not Lin Yuexiang could convince the masses would depend on the other party's ability. If he couldn't even handle such a small matter well, then when he became an official in the future, wouldn't he be suppressed by others? Lin Yuexiang did not disappoint her. On the first day, the people at the farm site were very dissatisfied with the appearance of such a beautiful woman and the fact that she had taken over such an important task. However, what Lin Yuexiang did next left them convinced. Not only was this woman beautiful, but she was also very knowledgeable about crops. Her words were clear and logical, and her words were eloquent. She also knew how to draw. The maps of the fields that she drew were really good, and the new ideas that she came up with were all very useful. His Highness was the one who found him, and he had the ability, so they naturally had to respect him. Lin Yuexiang's problem was solved. Next was LV Yuji. Tanghua asked her what she wanted to do. The little girl said, "Your Highness, Yuji wants to open a medical center." Every time Yuji thinks of the serious illness after being drenched in the rain, Yuji thinks of treating the illness and saving people. Otherwise, it would be meaningless and they wouldn't be able to hurt each other. On this day, LV Yuji had already diagnosed 20 patients and was preparing to close the clinic. In fact, the patients in the clinic were already waiting for 3 days. Moreover, she had limited the number of customers to 3 days in advance. Otherwise, the business would be closed. Tanghua also planned to walk out from behind the curtain and take LV Yuji back to the princess residence. At this moment, a person suddenly rushed into the clinic from outside. When he saw LV Yuji, he grabbed her and said, "I'm fine. Little godly doctor, please come with me." LV Yuji knew martial arts. She casually pushed his hand down and said with a serious expression, "What's the matter? If you want to be treated, please line up. If you can't wait, go to other medical centers. Those old doctors are all capable people." Second Prince Consort said that this matter has to be done by the little godly doctor. "Little godly doctor, come with me. After the treatment, Second Prince Consort will definitely reward you greatly." Second Prince Consort? LV Yuji's gaze deepened. She even turned around and forgot about Tanghua behind the curtain. In the end, she smiled and said, "I'm sorry, please line up. No matter what kind of horse you are, you have to line up." Chapter 1509. Seeing that LV Yuji was unmoved, the manservant couldn't help but feel a little angry. He straightened his back and said arrogantly, "Little divine doctor, you have to think clearly. I'm someone sent by the Second Prince Consort, and I'm inviting you with good intentions. The Second Prince Consort invited you because he thinks highly of you. You're letting down the Second Prince Consort." He lowered his voice. "Do you not want to stay in the imperial city anymore?" This small medical center had Tanghua's shadow behind it, and it only spread among the medical centers. With Lu Qing's current status, if he wasn't sick or in pain, how could he care about a small medical center in the imperial city? Moreover, this medical center was more than 10 streets away from the second princess residence. It was very far away. Naturally, Lu Qing and this manservant didn't know that LV Yuji's medical center was supported by Tanghua, and Tanghua had only really appeared once. The citizens of the imperial city respected and feared her, and didn't dare to casually talk about her. They were afraid that if they said something bad, a die-hard fan of the eldest princess would suddenly appear and point at them and scold them. Now in the imperial city, whether it was the local scholars or the scholars who came to participate in the examination, their dream fairy was the eldest princess. She could only be seen from afar and could not be touched. They had once thought that no one in the entire world was worthy of her. I didn't cause trouble in the imperial city. I did my duty by opening a medical center to treat illnesses and save people. I also didn't do anything outrageous. Why can't I stay in the imperial city? LV Yuji wasn't afraid at all. As she grew older, she remembered the bitter days when her mother took care of her and her brother when they were young. On the way to find Lu Qing, They were chased by the people sent by Lu Qing. Her mother had tears in her eyes and gritted her teeth as she personally pushed her and her brother down the hill in pain and despair. Her small body was drenched in the rain as she rolled down the hill. Stones, weeds, and bushes scratched her skin and face in pain. She clearly remembered the pain of catching a cold and having a high fever. What was Lu Qing? Other than the fact that he was related to her by blood, he was just a cruel and unscrupulous person. He was clearly a poor scholar who clung to the nobles and came from a poor background. Now, he was using his identity as the second prince consort to do whatever he wanted in the imperial city. Little divine doctor, second prince consort really can't wait any longer. I'll have to trouble you to go over and take a look. When the manservant saw that he could not threaten LV Yuji, he thought that it was better to trick her over and treat second prince consort first. Once second prince consort recovered, he would settle this matter with her. LV Yuji's heart stirred. Tell me first, what happened to second prince consort? I accidentally fell while riding a horse and broke my leg. It looks a little serious. Little divine doctor, come with me quickly. When the servant heard LV Yuji's question, he thought that there was a chance. In truth, she didn't know. LV Yuji only wanted to know if Lu Qing was unlucky. When she heard that Lu Qing had broken his leg while riding a horse, she almost clapped her hands in joy. Retribution. This was retribution. I can't go with you. I made a promise with the other medical centers that I will only diagnose 20 patients a day. In 2 days, there will be a new round of queues. If you can wait, send someone to snatch the number earlier. When I first came to the imperial city, I must fulfill the promise that I made. A gentleman's words cannot be taken back. Even if I'm a woman, I don't want to go back on my words. If you can't wait, it's still the same as before. Go and find the old doctor from the other medical centers. When the manservant saw this, he gritted his teeth and quickly rushed over to pull LV Yuji. Chapter 15:10. From his point of view, this girl was delicate and weak and was only in her teens. Today, he had to carry the winner back and treat the second prince consort first. However, LV Yuji was trained in martial arts and easily dodged it. She even casually gave him a slap and pushed him out of the door, closing it in an instant. Her voice rang out, I've already said that I've finished treating the 20 patients today. Go and find other doctors. The manservant had no choice. The second prince consort was still waiting, so he could only go and find other doctors. LV Yuji stood behind the door. After a long time, she said, Your Highness, I'm a little happy. I'm also very happy. Tangwa walked out from the back and greeted LV Yuji. Yuji, come and eat some desserts to celebrate. LV Yuji hurriedly ran to Tangwa's side and found a place to sit down. She picked up a dessert and fiercely bit into it, swallowing it in a few bites. Your Highness, this is retribution. Lu Qing actually broke his leg. I'm not going to treat him. I'm afraid that if I treat him to death, Your Highness won't be satisfied. Tangwa nodded. If you treat him to death, my later plans will be useless. I really won't be satisfied. So, I'd better not do anything. I'll just bear with it. LV Yuji propped up her small chin. I just don't know if his leg is serious. I hope it's serious. Tangwa's thoughts moved as she silently recalled the plot. She said, It should be quite serious. Tongzi, I remember that Lu Qing should have suffered a serious fall this time. In the end, he was treated by a traveling doctor, right? That's right. The great host was a traveling doctor who came from an unknown place. Then I'll have to send a few people to watch over him. Once that traveling doctor appears, I'll capture him and bring him to the clinic. Tangwa narrowed her eyes. In this clinic, there was only one girl, LV Yuji, and a few servants. There were indeed not many people. The two chatted for a while before returning to the princess's residence from the back door. The second princess's residence caused a bigger commotion. Lu Qing's broken leg also attracted Tang Xi's attention. She didn't care about Lu Qing's injuries as long as he didn't die. With Lu Qing, her signature prince consort, her days were actually very comfortable. No one cared about her, so it wasn't as bad as she had imagined. Of course, as long as she didn't run into her royal sister, everything would be fine. How is the prince consort's leg? Tang Xi asked the old doctor who was frowning. The old doctor quickly stood up and bowed before saying, "Your Highness, the second princess. The second prince consort's injury is very serious and has already injured his bones. This commoner can only help the second prince consort stop the pain, but is unable to help the second prince consort's leg recover. So, you mean he's crippled?" Tang Shi asked nonchalantly. "If there is a doctor with good medical skills, there may be a chance." The old doctor was more tactful. After all, he couldn't understand Tang Shi's words. Tang Shi said, "Then you can prescribe some medicine for the prince consort to relieve the pain first." Hearing that there was no blame in Tang Shi's tone, the old doctor felt relieved. She glanced at Lu Qing, whose face was pale from the pain, and asked his manservant, "How did the prince consort fall off the horse?" "I was riding a horse and accidentally fell. I'll have to trouble your highness to order someone to help me call for a doctor." Lu Qing's heart was extremely cold. He didn't want to become a cripple. "It's best if you can invite that little divine doctor from the imperial city. Recently, I occasionally heard that her reputation is very good. Her medical skills aren't bad, so she should be able to treat my leg." "All right," Tang Shi answered perfunctorily. Chapter 15:11. The people sent by Tang Shi naturally did not manage to invite LV Yuji. After hearing the words of her subordinates, Tang Shi also felt that LV Yuji did not give her, the princess, face and was a little angry. She happened to pass by LV Yuji's clinic. Without saying a word, she asked someone to help her out of the carriage and walked into LV Yuji's clinic. She saw that LV Yuji was checking the pulse of a patient and did not seem to see her. Tang Shi's palace maid stepped forward and said, "Why aren't you saluting when you see the second princess?" LV Yuji glanced at Tang Shi and released the patient's wrist. She stood up and bowed to LV Yuji. "This humble girl greets the second princess. If your highness needs to see a doctor, please wait for 2 days and send someone to queue up. This humble girl has to treat the patient. Please forgive me for neglecting the second princess." Tang Shi wanted to take advantage of LV Yuji's disrespect to her to vent her anger. She did not expect the other party to be so sensible. She saluted properly and spoke politely. She could not find any fault at all. If she got angry like this, it would be too unreasonable. It would be a joke, and people would compare her to imperial sister. This princess is not feeling well. Treat this princess first. The patient sitting in front of LV Yuji heard that she was going to get up and give up his spot. His illness was not urgent. He could wait in line later. It would not be good if the princess made things difficult for the little divine doctor. But just as he moved, LV Yuji held him down and said, "Sit down properly. I'll treat you. Your highness, if you want to see a doctor, please queue up. There is no distinction between nobility and lowly here. There is only first come, first served." Yuji thinks that the imperial city is a good place because this place is fair and there are few cases of bullying. I think the second princess can understand, right? You mean, if this princess wants you to see a doctor, it will be bullying? Tang Shi was unhappy. A little female doctor dared to say such words to her. She found the wrong place. The patients in line all wanted Tang Shi to go first, but they were stopped by LV Yuji. She said with a serious face, "I only look at the people who have queued up. I remember the people here clearly. If you want to see a doctor, no matter who it is, you have to queue up. This is the rule." Little divine doctor, right? Tang Shi's lips curled up. It's really rare to see a little divine doctor with such a straightforward temper. The last person like you is already... How is it? Before Tang Shi could finish, Tang's voice came from behind. Tang Shi couldn't be more familiar with this gentle and pleasant voice. She raised her head abruptly and saw Tangwa coming out from the back of the clinic. Ingzhu was still the same as before. No matter where Tangwa went, she would always have a plate of snacks in her hand. Tang Shi's lips trembled and her legs trembled. "Sister, why are you here? This clinic is sponsored by me. When I have nothing to do, I like to come here and take a look at life and death," Wang Yao said. "System, host is bragging again. Look at how scared Tang Shi is." Tang Shi's expression was extremely ugly. "So this is Imperial Sister's clinic. Why haven't I heard of it before? Didn't I just return to the Imperial City not long ago? And this clinic is open to treat illnesses and save lives. How can it be like other clinics that advertise it every day? Yuji's medical skills are good. Even if she doesn't advertise it, there will be an endless stream of people coming. Yuji can't handle it alone, so she can only diagnose 20 people a day. Chapter 15:12. Second Royal Sister, what were you going to say just now? I interrupted you just now. You can continue now. Tangwa looked up at Tang Shi with a smile. Tang Shi didn't dare to say anything else. She pursed her lips. I just think that there aren't many people with such a stubborn temper like the little divine doctor. It's very surprising. Now that I know she's Royal Sister's person, it's not surprising. With Royal Sister backing her up, anyone can be stubborn. Second Royal Sister is wrong. Yuji's temper has always been straightforward and straightforward. I'm backing her up because she's in the right. If she's unreasonable, no, Yuji is a good girl. She won't be unreasonable and cause trouble. System, very good, such a protective host. LV Yuji won't be unreasonable. Haha, as expected of his great host. Tang Shi heard the hidden meaning and was almost angered to death. LV Yuji buried her head and tried hard to hold back her laughter. Your Highness is still the best. They're both princesses, but why is there such a big difference? Isn't Second Royal Sister sick? If you're not in a hurry, you can come the day after tomorrow. The new number will be out. Tangwa said with a smile. If it's an urgent illness, it's better to go to the palace and ask the imperial physician to diagnose. Even if we are princesses of the royal family, we still have to pay attention to the order of arrival. Yuji treats the patients of the common people. There is only one situation that can make her make an exception and not wait in line. That is when the patient is carried to the clinic and is in critical condition. As a doctor, she cannot refuse. Otherwise, with the current reputation of the medical center, everyone knows not to come here to see an urgent illness. If you insist on coming here, you're being a hooligan to Yuji. Tang Shi was so embarrassed that she would never come here again. It's not a serious illness. I didn't know the rules here and caused trouble for Royal Sister. Royal Sister, I'll take my leave first, Tangwa said with a smile. Do you want me to send someone to go to the palace and ask the imperial physician for you? No need. Thank you for your kindness, Royal Sister. She was about to die of anger, okay? It was really a bad start. It was all Lu Qing's fault. If it weren't for him, would she have such a belly full of anger? Lu Qing, that man, was really a jinx. Ever since he entered her princess residence, nothing good had happened. How could she have been so blind to want to be with him in the first place? After Tang Shi left, the patients at the back of the line hurriedly bowed to Tangwa and thanked her with tears of gratitude. It turned out that this place really had the support of the first princess. Previously, when they heard the rumors, they didn't believe it. The price of seeing a doctor here was very cheap, and the herbs were also very common. They could all afford it. Even if there were only 20 people a day, they wouldn't mind. Because of this, the news that Tangwa owned a medical center spread out. LV Yuji's reputation grew, attracting the attention of the emperor and empress. When Tangwa entered the palace, they asked about it. When I was traveling, I met a young lady. She was very smart and wholeheartedly wanted to treat illnesses and save people. I gave her this opportunity. Now it seems that she did a good job. It's really not easy for a young lady to do this. It's worth admiring. Compared to the empress, the emperor was actually a very open-minded person. If it weren't for the emperor, the empress might not have been able to accept that Tangwa didn't get married and ran around all day. Under the emperor's leadership, the empress also saw the great capabilities of the women in the world. She no longer urged Tangwa to get married. Chapter 15:13. Her son was the crown prince, and her daughter was respected by the world. Her life was worth it. When she heard that the emperor was going to give LV Yuji a plaque, she said in approval, then I have to do something. I hope that all the women in the world can learn from me. It had to be said that the empress envied Tangwa. She actually lived the life of many women's dreams. When LV Yuji received the plaque from the emperor and the palace plaque from the empress, she was a bit stunned. Your Highness, isn't this too fast? Although she felt that her ability was not bad and could attract the attention of those two, it definitely wouldn't be so fast. Then she reacted and hurriedly thanked. Many thanks, Your Highness. His Highness must have said something good to make the Emperor and Empress give her such a gift. She understood Tangwa's thoughts. She wanted the three of them to stand at the highest point and make Lu Qing look down on them, feel regret, despair, and finally kill them. Her mother always said that she didn't know what His Highness was thinking. Why did he have to do so many things to torment Lu Qing? It could be said that Lu Qing was unlucky. Who told him to provoke the vengeful His Highness? In the future, when you have nothing to do, go to the palace and see my imperial mother. She especially likes young girls. She really liked the flower tea you made last time. Yes, Yuji will definitely go and thank the Emperor and Empress. Yuji understood that she had reached the heavens in a single step at the age of not even 16. She wondered what expression Lu Qing would have if he knew that he had such a daughter. At this moment, she felt that His Highness's revenge was a wonderful idea. Next, Tangwa went to the farm field and looked at Lin Yuexiang wearing a straw hat and teaching the old farmers in the field. She sat at the side with a smile and drank tea. She was very satisfied. System, yes, the cows are all strong and can go to the field. How could she not be satisfied? She didn't know when it started, but the host became obsessed with raising cows. She even raised them in herds. The heads of the herds were all very strong and strong. They were definitely good for farming. Your Highness, I feel like you're doing something big. Tangwa glanced at Yun Bushio. Then you're wrong. What I did was not a big deal. But your Highness has nurtured 3 capable people for Bei Xia. One is a miraculous doctor, and the other is very likely to be this year's top scorer. He knows poetry and popular literature. This is Bei Xia's fortune. There is another one who is proficient in the 4 arts of zither, chess, calligraphy, painting, and martial arts. However, he is most proficient in the crops in the fields. This is the blessing of the northern summer country. Your Highness, if this isn't a big deal, then what is? Yun Bushio was intoxicated. This was the person he liked. How could she be so outstanding? Tangwa smiled gently. State Preceptor, didn't you participate in these 3 capable people? LV Yufan's talent and chess skills were all taught by the Imperial Preceptor. LV Yuji's medical skills were also taught by the Imperial Preceptor. The Imperial Preceptor had also made great contributions. If you're really doing something big, then you're the one doing something big. And I just wanted to take revenge for a personal grudge, but I accidentally made a big deal out of it. Tangwa looked helpless. I also didn't know that it would turn out like this. Maybe it's fate. Yun Bushio, why did he not believe it? What fate? Could it not change in her hands? She could even go against the heavens and change her fate. System, Dift. The host really knows how to pretend. Maybe when she said this, she didn't want to pretend. Chapter 15:15. Lu Qing heard that the newly conferred female official of Bei Xia had been invited to participate in the poetry gathering held by the talents of the imperial city. Perhaps it was because of that familiar name, but he also wanted to see what kind of person this female official was to be valued so highly by the emperor. He stood up, and Wanju hurriedly supported him. Lu Qing pushed Wanju and said with a cold face, I don't need you to support me. My leg is just a little lame. It's not broken. I can walk by myself. Hearing this, Wanju didn't dare to go up. Ever since the second prince consort accidentally broke his leg, his temper had become more and more eccentric. He would throw tantrums at the slightest thing, and the maids in the room were all a little afraid of him. Lu Qing limped out. He wanted to walk normally, but no matter what, he couldn't walk normally. He was originally a distinguished and elegant person, but because he had broken his leg while riding a horse and injured his bones, he had invited all the old doctors in the imperial city. Tangxi had also invited the imperial doctor in the imperial palace to take a look at him. They all said that his leg could be treated, but their medical skills weren't enough and couldn't restore his leg to its original state. So after the wound healed, he became a lame person. So, was his leg really untreatable? If it wasn't for the fact that later on, he heard that someone had also broken his leg, and it was even more serious than his. In the end, it was cured by the little godly doctor of the medical hall in the northern part of the city. Now, he could walk normally and jump around as if nothing had happened. he wouldn't be so unresigned. He still bore a grudge against the little godly doctor of that medical hall, L.V. Yuji. L.V. Yuji's name wasn't known by the people of the imperial city. Everyone was used to calling her the little godly doctor, and over time, they didn't care what she was called. Everyone called her the little godly doctor, and when it reached Lu Qing's ears, it was naturally only the 3 words, little godly doctor. If he heard the 3 words, L.V. Yuji, he might have some doubts in his heart. Of course, he might not have any doubts, because in his heart, he didn't care about his wife and children. To be able to remember the 3 words, Lin Yuexiang, was also because Lin Yuexiang had left a deep impression on him. On the day of the poetry gathering, Tanguo was also invited. Usually, Tanguo wouldn't go, but the person who held the poetry party would definitely invite the eldest princess. As for whether she would come or not, that was her choice. Tanguo believed that the name Lin Yuexiang was enough to attract Lu Qing. Even though in Lu Qing's heart, this woman who had already been given an official position by the emperor and could be an official at the same court as Min, could not possibly be his former wife. However, he would definitely want to see how this woman with the same name looked like. He wanted to see if she was really as powerful as the rumors said. Therefore, Lu Qing would definitely go back. How could she not go to such an interesting event? Go and invite the imperial preceptor. We'll go to the poetry gathering together later. After receiving the invitation, Yun Bushio hurriedly washed his face and changed into a clean set of clothes. He didn't go out through the main entrance of the princess residence, but directly jumped over the wall. Tanguo happened to come out of the house and saw Yun Bushio jumping down from the wall. She teased, "Imperial preceptor, you're in such a good mood." Yun Bushio was a little embarrassed, but he was a little happy. He couldn't find north and south, so he was beside himself with joy. Since the imperial preceptor is here, let's go. Yun Bushio felt that the princess was especially happy today, as if something was going to happen. The candidates didn't dare to think about becoming the first princess. What about this female official? After the candidates came into contact with Lin Yuexiang, they shook their heads helplessly and didn't dare to think about it. How could these 2 women be so outstanding? Furthermore, Lin Yuexiang was an official in the imperial court. Who would dare to marry her? Even if they did, they would have to treat her well. But even if they wanted to marry her, would she be willing? Who here would be able to catch her eye? When Tangxi arrived, not many people were looking at her. Lin Yuexiang. You met her once before. She was a little annoyed. It was fine that she couldn't compare to her sister, but Lin Yuexiang couldn't compare to her. She wanted to find trouble with Lin Yuexiang, but she was an official in the imperial court. Chapter 15-17. The emperor had personally conferred the title. As a princess, she absolutely could not offend the other party. Your Highness, Lin Yuexiang has really changed a lot. Yun Bushio sighed. If it was said that L.V. Yuji and L.V. Yufan had changed because of him, this Lin Yuexiang was personally nurtured by the princess. Her Royal Highness was indeed a very powerful woman, who could turn a village woman into an important official in the court. In this world, there was probably no one who could do it, right? System. The host is just raising cows. Can't you see that she's so bored now? There were people helping her do everything now. There was the emperor and the crown prince who doted on her. Below them were Lin Yuexiang and her 2 sons, as well as countless brainless fans. If the host wanted to do something big, with a little instigation, there would probably be a large group of people following. That's Lin Yuexiang's own ability. Tanguo originally wanted to try. She didn't do anything and just gave Lin Yuexiang the opportunity and conditions. If it was someone else, even if they were given the opportunity and conditions, they might not be able to do it today. In this world, how many people were born better than Lin Yuexiang, had better conditions, and had better roads than her? But they couldn't do it to Lin Yuexiang's level. That was why she said that it was Lin Yuexiang's ability. Lin Yuexiang's smile was gentle, and there was an unquestionable aura in the gentleness. Not only did it attract the admiration of many men, but many women were also very envious. If the eldest princess was a role model for all women in the world, she was really far away from them. After all, the eldest princess had a noble status. No matter what she did, ordinary people couldn't compare to her. Lin Yuexiang was different. It was said that she was born poor. They couldn't be jealous of such a woman. Tang Shi didn't greet Lin Yuexiang. She didn't want to say anything to her. The light on Lin Yuexiang's body was really too dazzling. Even if she was dressed simply, her appearance was even more outstanding than hers. Even her luxurious clothes couldn't cover up the other party's brilliance, which made her angry. Lu Qing arrived late. He could see the woman in plain clothes surrounded by people at a glance. When he saw Lin Yuexiang, he was stunned for a moment. This woman's appearance seemed to be different from what he had imagined. He thought that such a talented and outstanding woman would not be too beautiful. He never thought that Lin Yuexiang would be so beautiful. He limped over and happened to hear Lin Yuexiang discussing poetry. After listening to her, he really had a good impression of her. He could not help but compose a poem on the spot, intending to get to know this woman. He originally thought that his talent would definitely be appreciated by Lin Yuexiang, who also liked poetry. However, Lin Yuexiang only nodded and smiled at him after hearing his words. Then, there was no then. Lu Qing didn't give up. After all, he was one of the top talents in the imperial city. Why was Lin Yuexiang's reaction so cold? Could it be that the poem just now didn't move her? That's right. This Lin Yuexiang was not an ordinary woman. It seemed that he had to put in some effort. Lu Qing composed several poems in succession, but Lin Yuexiang's reaction was mediocre. His expression was a bit ugly. If it wasn't for the other party's identity, he really wanted to question her on the spot. Then, there were other talents composing poems. Occasionally, one or two of them would be praised by Lin Yuexiang. He was so angry that he wanted to hit them. He felt that all women called Lin Yuexiang liked to go against him. You clearly know that my leg needs the little miracle doctor's help, but you didn't say a word. If you said a word, I wouldn't be in this state today. Forget about that. But if you belittle my poem, then I won't let it go. In terms of poetry, Lu Qing was still relatively confident. Ever since Lu Qing broke his leg and became a cripple, he had lost all his rationality. He felt that everyone was hurting him and hated him. He couldn't calm down. When he heard Tang Guo's words, coupled with the anger in his heart, he couldn't help but retort. There was a kind of feeling of smashing a broken jar. When Tang Shi heard Lu Qing's words, her expression changed greatly. She didn't want to offend her royal sister. What was wrong with this Lu Qing? He was becoming more and more immature. Wasn't it good for a cripple to stay in the residence? Why did he have to come out and make a fool of himself? Chapter 1519. Your poems aren't good to begin with. Official Lin gave you face, but I won't. Lu Qing was infuriated. Tang Guo was happy. This Lu Qing had really lost his mind. You said that the little divine doctor didn't treat you. Are you blaming me? Lu Qing wanted to say, of course. Suddenly, there was a gust of wind and the crisp sound of a slap was heard. It turned out that Tang Shi heard Lu Qing's nonsense and was afraid that Tang Guo would be angry. She couldn't help but slap Lu Qing's face. It was very inappropriate for a prince consort to write a few poems praising official Lin's appearance in public. It wouldn't be wrong to say that he was flirting with an official. Was there something wrong with his head? How can you speak to royal sister like that? Tang Shi said coldly. The little divine doctor has his rules. He can only treat 20 people a day, and they have to line up 3 days in advance. Even royal father agrees with this rule. Do you think he will make an exception for you? Lu Qing was also stunned. He had been married to Tang Shi for more than 10 years, and this was the first time he was slapped, especially in front of so many people. It was really humiliating. Why aren't you guys bringing the second prince consort back to the princess residence? The second prince consort fell sick some time ago, and his mind is not clear. He likes to talk nonsense. I didn't expect that he would offend royal sister because of my carelessness. Please don't mind. Tang Guo said. Then let's bring him back and get the doctor to treat him. Lu Qing's eyes widened. He was held down by 2 servants. He was a weak scholar. Besides the strength he had when he was farming, he couldn't struggle at all. Just like that, he was brought back in front of everyone. From today onwards, he didn't have the face to appear in front of this group of scholars. Lin Yuexiang stood silently beside Tanghua and looked at Lu Qing's sorry figure with a faint smile. Lu Qing loved glory and wealth, so he abandoned his wife who was devoted to him and was gentle to him. Now, because he had said something wrong, he had been slapped in public by the high and mighty second princess. Did the other party feel the slightest bit of regret in his heart? No, that can't be. Lu Qing would only blame everyone here. He would think that she had no foresight. He would think that the first princess was deliberately messing with him. He would think that the second princess had embarrassed him. Why would he regret it? Lu Qing would never have thought that Lin Yuexiang would be his first wife, and that Tang Shi would slap her in front of her. Lord Lin, how was it? Did it feel good? Back in the pavilion, Tanghua asked Lin Yuexiang. Lin Yuexiang smiled faintly. It feels great. Thank you, Your Highness. I didn't expect that the person I once respected and loved was actually such an unbearable person. Oh, the best is yet to come. Don't worry, let's slowly let him know the truth. Chapter 1520. The news of Lu Qing being slapped by the second princess during the poetry recital spread like wildfire in the imperial city. Because of this, Lu Qing bore a grudge against Lin Yuexiang. He felt that if it wasn't for Lin Yuexiang, he wouldn't have been humiliated and wouldn't have the face to attend the poetry recital in the imperial city. To the people of the imperial city, this was something that they took great delight in talking about. To the emperor and empress, it was just a trivial matter. No matter what Tang Shi or Lu Qing did, as long as it didn't escalate and cause a death, they would turn a blind eye to it. It should be said that the emperor and empress didn't care about Tang Shi and naturally wouldn't care so much. When the emperor heard that it was Lu Qing who wrote a poem praising Lin Yuexiang's beauty in front of everyone, his words were frivolous and he felt that Tang Shi had done a good job. Although Lin Yuexiang was a woman, was she a simple woman? Now, she was one of his ministers and had to attend court every day. She was the first female official in the northern Xia country. After the poetry recital, Lu Qing didn't step out of his room. In his account book, there were a few people who were very hateful. Tanghua, the imperial city's little miracle doctor, the female official Lin Yuexiang, and Tang Shi. He was still a cripple now, especially when Tang Shi kept scolding him that he was a cripple and didn't want to stay in his residence, and instead went out to stir up trouble. It really made him angry. But after the anger, Lu Qing felt very helpless. Back then, he resolutely chose Princess Shang because he felt that with his ability, even if he didn't enter the imperial city as an official, he could still achieve something. Now, a mere woman had become an official in the imperial city and was suppressing him. It really made him feel very uncomfortable, especially that woman's name was Lin Yuexiang. Compared to Lu Qing, Lin Yuexiang was much more glamorous. She got on and off the court on time. She got along well with her colleagues. In her spare time, she would drop by Tanghua's place. Everyone knew that she was the first princess's person, so no one dared to rope her in. They don't dare to rope me in, but that doesn't mean they don't want to rope me in. Lin Yuexiang had a helpless expression on her face. Although she had long been prepared for this, there were still many things that she found hard to believe after entering the imperial court and becoming an official. Tanghua was curious. What did they do? Send me men. Lin Yuexiang took a piece of pastry and swallowed it. She was speechless. They're all 17 and 18 years old teenagers. They have red lips and white teeth. They each have their own strengths in poetry and calligraphy. Lin Yuexiang held her forehead and said, Your Highness, do you think I can do it to a youth who is only 2 or 3 years older than my son? I really don't know why they think I like this kind of young man. One day, when I returned home, there was actually a young man lying on my bed in my room. Tanghua's lips couldn't help but curl up. These officials of Beixia were quite interesting. They actually thought of stuffing men on Lin Yuexiang's bed. Host, is this considered keeping pace with the times? To deal with men, stuffing women. To deal with women, stuffing good-looking men. Tanghua smiled and asked Lin Yuexiang, what happened to that young man? I asked him if he was forced. Lin Yuexiang replied. She didn't think there was anything wrong with this question. After all, there were many people like this who couldn't help themselves. I didn't expect that he actually said with a shy face that he was willing. Later, I asked someone to throw him out. The next day, when the imperial court was dismissed, I had no choice but to ask for a group of people from the emperor. The original people in the residence were all dismissed. It's finally quiet now, Lin Yuexiang said with a face of relief. Chapter 1521. Lin Yuexiang now had her own residence. LV Yuji lived in the princess residence, and LV Yufan lived in Yun Buxiu's residence. Although the three residences were very close to each other, other than a few insiders, no one knew the relationship between the three of them. Compared to Lin Yuexiang, who was in the limelight, and LV Yuji, who had the title of Little Divine Doctor, LV Yufan seemed to be very obscure. In the midst of obscurity, LV Yufan finally welcomed the imperial examination. Previously, Lin Yuexiang and LV Yuji were very busy. Other than coming back every night to check on LV Yufan's situation, they didn't meet at all. LV Yufan wasn't nervous about the examination at all. On the contrary, compared to his previous life, he was more confident that he could shine in this life. Lin Yuexiang and LV Yuji were also waiting for this day. The day when they would beat up Lu Qing was getting closer and closer. While LV Yufan was taking the examination, Lu Qing wasn't idle. He thought about it and was unwilling to give up. He also heard many things about Lin Yuexiang. He decided to personally take action. No matter what, he had to teach Lin Yuexiang a lesson. As for how to teach Lin Yuexiang a lesson, no matter what, she was still a woman. If news of her having an ambiguous relationship with a man were to spread, it would definitely have a huge impact on her. If it was an ordinary man, everyone would only think that Lin Yuexiang was a bit loose and wouldn't think much of it. What if this man was the prince consort of the current second princess, Lu Qing? Host, Lu Qing recently went to find Lin Yuexiang. I feel that he must be plotting something. In this life, Lu Qing was greatly suppressed by the host. However, he didn't grow up and could only think of such despicable methods. However, this method was really vicious. If Lin Yuexiang was really plotted against by him, it would be a weakness that could be used against her. That's right. Think about it. A woman of ordinary birth who finally became the first female official of the dynasty with her own abilities. At this time, Lu Qing's evil plan will succeed. She will definitely panic, and then Lu Qing will be able to do whatever he wants to her. What a beautiful dream. Tanghua was sitting in the courtyard of her princess residence, eating snacks while listening to the system's live broadcast. Not long after, Ingzhu ran in and said in a low voice, "Your Highness, Lord Lin sent someone to invite Your Highness over to watch the show. Go and invite the Imperial Preceptor. Let's watch the show together." When Yun Buxiu heard that Tanghua wanted to invite him to watch a show, he didn't care about anything else and directly jumped down from the neighboring wall. A spotless white robe fluttered and landed in front of her. The people in the princess residence were already used to it and did not find it strange. The group of people majestically went to the restaurant where Lin Yuexiang was. On the way, Tanghua bumped into Tang Shi, who had just returned from playing outside the city. When Tang Shi made way for her, she kindly said, "Second Imperial Sister, there's a good show today. Do you want to watch it?" Tang Shi muttered in her heart. What good show? She had been a bit dissolute these years, and her dream of becoming the Princess Royal was basically dispelled by Tanghua's existence. Other than Lu Qing causing trouble for her, she felt that she was living quite comfortably. Therefore, if she could avoid offending Tanghua, she would definitely not offend her. She finally understood that as long as she lived her own life and didn't provoke her imperial sister, her life would still go on. Seeing Tanghua's deep expression, she felt that something was wrong. Imperial sister, what show is it? Was it worth the trouble to watch it? Chapter 1522. When Tang Shi heard the words Lu Qing from Tanghua's mouth, her expression changed. Lu Qing again? How much trouble was this Lu Qing going to cause for her? Why couldn't he just hide in the princess's residence and be her second prince consort? He had touched all the maids in the princess's residence, except for the people around her. Was he still not satisfied? Tang Shi's heart trembled as she followed Tanghua. She tried her best to keep a straight face. When she arrived at the restaurant, she saw Lin Yuexiang standing outside from afar. She could no longer keep a straight face. Not only Lin Yuexiang, but there were also many people in the restaurant. It was noisy inside. No one knew what was going on. These people all knew Tang Hua and Tang Shi. When they saw them, they quickly made way for them. Tang Shi took a deep breath and ran quickly. When she saw the scene inside, she almost fainted. It turned out that Lu Qing's face was red, and he was taking off his clothes in the restaurant. When he saw people passing by him, he wanted to pull them back. When she got closer, she realized that Lu Qing's face was swollen. He was hugging the pillar because he couldn't stand properly. That was why so many people dared to look at him. Lu Qing was only left with his underwear, and there seemed to be footprints on his body. Tang Shi only felt her face burning. She quickly turned around and called for people to take Lu Qing back. What happened? Tang Hua asked Lin Yuexiang in a voice that was neither loud nor soft. Lin Yuexiang replied, I don't know what's wrong with this second prince consort. He suddenly chased after me from downstairs and actually wanted to hug me. Of course, I had no choice but to beat him up. There are still many women in this restaurant. If the unmarried ones were hugged by him, their reputations would be ruined. After being beaten up, he hugged the pillar. I don't know what he was doing. Although Lin Yuexiang said that those who could see clearly knew what was wrong with Lu Qing. He was clearly drugged, and it was a strong drug at that. He couldn't hug anyone, so he hugged a pillar and licked and kissed it. Could it be that he thought this pillar was a girl? Especially when he did some indecent things. It was really embarrassing. This second prince consort was a top scholar back then. How could he be so unbearable? Could it be that he really had some serious illness? Tang Shi listened to the whispers around her and said, Second prince consort has a serious mental illness. It's my fault for not taking care of him well. The princess residence will compensate for all the losses of the restaurant and everyone here. After saying that, she nodded to Tang Hua, then asked someone to pull Lu Qing, who was still going crazy, away. He wanted to drug me. After returning to the princess residence, Lin Yuexiang said in a low voice. Her voice was extremely cold. This person is really getting worse and worse. Chapter 1523. Wan Zhu looked at Lu Qing, who was crippled and looked dispirited. His face was full of wrinkles, and he was no longer as high-spirited as before. When she was wiping Lu Qing's face, she hesitated for a moment. Was this what she wanted? Wan Zhu, you're the only one by my side. Unexpectedly, at this time, Lu Qing suddenly became gentle. His eyes were filled with tenderness as he looked at her and held her hand. None of the people around me are sincere. You're the only one who's willing to stay by my side. Wan Zhu, you're the best. Lu Qing's words made Wan Zhu's heart ache. Prince consort, Wan Zhu will take good care of you. Lu Qing closed his eyes and no longer lost his temper. He had been defeated twice by Lin Yuexiang and humiliated twice by Tang Shi. He couldn't take it anymore. This kind of life was not what he wanted. Therefore, he had to find a way to rise up. The only person who could help him stand up again was the third prince. As long as the third prince became the emperor in the future, he would be second only to one and above all, even if he was a cripple. Tang Hua, Lin Yuexiang, the little magic doctor, he would slowly deal with these people one by one. As for Tang Shi, he wouldn't let her go either. He just had to wait until the end. Although Lu Qing didn't have a good life these years. In fact, with his intelligence, he still made a lot of money. He planned to give this money to the third prince to support him in raising a private army. Even if he couldn't inherit the throne openly, it would be the same if he directly seized the throne. Lu Qing recuperated for a while and told Tang Shi that he wouldn't go crazy anymore. Only then did Tang Shi allow him to go out. Seeing that he was really well behaved, smiling at everyone and didn't lose his temper for no reason, Tang Shi was relieved and didn't care. When the third prince and Lu Qing started to act strangely, Crown Prince Tang Shi had already noticed it. However, he didn't say anything. In fact, he had long wanted to remove the thorn in the third prince's side. However, the other party had always been very low-key, and he couldn't find any fault. Although he didn't know what the two were discussing at the moment, it was definitely not something good. It was better to wait for the other party to get the evidence, and then find a reason to get rid of them. Tang Shi felt that his idea was very good. He quickly ran in front of Tanghua and told her the plan. He had a feeling that he was going to praise him. Guo, what do you think of this idea? Very good, but royal brother, you have to monitor their movements at all times. You can't let them do anything unexpected. Brother, Tangji was full of confidence. I know what I'm doing, and I'll wait for him to make a mistake. Today, Imperial Father mentioned him intentionally or unintentionally. Although he didn't say anything, I could feel that Imperial Father might know. Come to think of it, Imperial Father is so wise. How could such a small trick be hidden? It's good that you know. By the way, I've taken a fancy to a few people in this year's Imperial examination. I think they are all good seedlings. One of them is called Lu Yufan. He's young and knowledgeable. I think he's very likely to be this year's top scholar. Tangji didn't like Yun Buxiu and basically didn't go to Yun Buxiu's place. Naturally, he didn't know that Lu Yufan was Yun Buxiu's disciple. Has Imperial Brother already pulled that person into your camp? Tangji quickly said, What do you mean by pulling him to your side? I'm making friends with him, good friends. Chapter 1524. It was enough that his father liked him. Forget about getting the crown prince's henchman. He didn't want to arouse his father's suspicion. Yun Buxiu was next door. He was about to climb over the wall to Tanghua's courtyard. Suddenly, he heard Tangji's voice. He paused in his action of jumping over the wall. Then, he held the wine pot in his hand and changed his direction. He walked out of the main entrance of his residence and entered through the main entrance of the princess residence. As soon as he appeared, Tangji turned his head away. Yun Buxiu was a treacherous guy. When he became the state preceptor of Beixia, he had bad intentions. He didn't expect that he had taken a fancy to his precious sister. Later, when his father asked him what reward he wanted, he actually asked for the residence next to the princess residence. It was really a good plan. Therefore, he didn't like Yun Buxiu. However, the other party didn't do anything wrong. As the crown prince, he could only talk less with the other party. Your Highness, this is fruit wine brewed from the fruit you gave me last time. Yun Buxiu placed the wine pot in front of Tanghua. He glanced at Tangji and placed another pot of wine in front of him. Your Highness, this is a fragrant and strong wine. Tangji snorted. In the end, he took the wine and said, I'll leave first. Seeing that the other party didn't succeed in anything and could only follow behind his younger sister, he didn't care too much about it. He was busy, especially when his father was getting older. Many important tasks had fallen on his shoulders. He didn't have much free time. Your Highness, I'll pour it for you. This is the first pot. It should taste good. Tangji heard the voice behind him and felt a little sympathy for Yun Buxiu. His sister didn't want to get married. Of course, he didn't know that his sister had promised Yun Buxiu that she would bring him wherever she went. Unsurprisingly, LV Yufan was the top scorer. The emperor personally selected her in the throne room. This time, LV Yufan was still 16 years old. From the emperor's words, he could feel that the emperor's eyes were full of praise compared to his previous life. However, just like in his previous life, he wanted to sue Lu Qing at this most glorious moment. LV Yufan, why haven't you left yet? The emperor asked curiously. He admired this young boy very much. This was the future minister of the crown prince, and he had to nurture him well. LV Yufan knelt down in front of everyone and kowtowed 3 times. Then she straightened her back and said on the spot, Your Majesty, LV Yufan will sue someone today. As soon as he finished speaking, all the civil and military officials in the imperial court were shocked. The little top scorer who had just been selected by the emperor was actually going to sue someone. This was the first time they had seen it. The emperor was also interested and said, Who do you want to sue? Reporting to the second prince consort, Lu Qing, LV Yufan said the same words as in her previous life, but this time, she was even more confident. She was sure that she would be able to sue Lu Qing to death. When the words, second prince consort Lu Qing appeared, the entire court was in an uproar. Lu Qing had caused a lot of trouble recently, and they had all heard about it. The emperor didn't care about it, and they were only secretly discussing it. When the new top scorer suddenly wanted to sue Lu Qing, They couldn't help but remember that Lu Qing had also been the top scorer in the imperial examination. Their expressions were a little strange. Wait, Lu Qing's surname was Lu, and LV Yufan's surname was Lu. It couldn't be so coincidental, right? Then tell me, what do you want to sue Lu Qing for? The emperor's expression became a little more serious. LV Yufan glanced at Lin Yuexiang's position. The mother and son's eyes met for a moment. Chapter 1525. First, I accuse Lu Qing of abandoning his wife and child. Second, I accuse Lu Qing of viciously killing his wife and child. Third, I accuse Lu Qing of deceiving the emperor. LV Yufan's three accusations shocked the entire court, including the emperor. From this short sentence, they were able to deduce several things. Lu Qing originally had a wife and child. For the sake of glory and wealth, he did not hesitate to kill his wife and child. If this was not deceiving the emperor, then what was? The emperor narrowed his eyes and asked, "What identity do you have to accuse Lu Qing of? What evidence do you have?" Lu Qing is Yufan's father. As soon as she finished speaking, some people in the court almost lost their balance. This piece of news was really too explosive. As for evidence, I have it. Not only do I have witnesses, but I also have material evidence. LV Yufan continued, "Is your majesty willing to give Yufan a chance? Then bring me the evidence. Can you find witnesses and material evidence immediately?" The emperor was slightly shocked but quickly regained his composure. To many people, this was a big matter. To the emperor, as long as it was not a natural disaster, a problem at the border, or an assassination attempt, these were all small matters. He used to admire Lu Qing. But now, if LV Yufan did not mention this person, he would have almost forgotten that Lu Qing was once the top scholar that he personally selected. Please invite official Lin, Her Highness the eldest princess, and the little godly doctor of the imperial city. LV Yufan called out 3 people in a row, causing the court officials to feel dizzy. Lin Yuexiang was already standing beside LV Yufan. She knelt down with LV Yufan and said, "Reporting to your majesty, this subject is Lu Qing's former wife." The court officials thought, "Are you joking? How could Lu Qing not understand? Why would he abandon such a good wife and such an outstanding son?" LV Yuji had already entered the palace and was waiting outside. When she heard her name being called, she walked into the throne room and knelt down beside Lin Yuexiang. "Yuji greets your majesty. What is your identity?" The emperor still liked LV Yuji and asked with a smile. LV Yuji replied, "Yuji is Lu Qing's daughter." Finally, Tangwa walked in with a smile on her face. All the civil and military officials could not help but become more serious. Tangwa did not kneel. The emperor had already dismissed her from her position, so she only bowed and said, "Imperial father, I saved these 3 people when I was traveling in the past." When the emperor heard this, he was amused. "When you saved them, you already knew that they had been wronged. Why didn't you report it?" "Because compared to suing Lu Qing, I believe that their lives are more important. Imperial father, look at the current situation. Don't you think so?" Tangwa said with a smile. The emperor thought to himself, "I'm afraid it's not like this. He definitely wants to let the 3 of them become influential first. When the time comes, Lu Qing won't be able to escape even if he wants to." Now, Lu Qing's life was a mess. On the other hand, the 3 mothers and children that he had abandoned were each more glorious than the other. This Lu Qing must be very upset. The emperor instantly guessed that the one who came up with this bad idea must be his little princess Guo. This lass was really fickle in her thinking. However, the 3 people below were indeed very good. "Show me the evidence." Tangwa asked someone to present all the letters that Lu Qing had once written. At the same time, a group of people were brought up, tied up. These people were the ones who had followed Lu Qing's orders to spy on Lin Yuexiang and her children. They were also the ones who had chased after the 3 of them in the end. They were not martial arts experts. They only knew martial arts, which was why the 3 of them were able to escape for so long. After the emperor finished looking at the evidence and listening to those people, he said, "Summon Lu Qing." Chapter 1526. Other than the annual banquet and the Thousand Autumns festival, he basically never entered the palace. This was the first time he was summoned to the palace by the emperor, so he was a little stunned. When he came back to his senses, he quickly gave the eunuch who delivered the decree some money, but the eunuch refused and didn't reveal anything. He only told him to enter the palace immediately. Tangshi also didn't go out to play today. When she heard that the emperor summoned Lu Qing to the palace, she subconsciously asked, "Did you go out and cause trouble again?" Lu Qing denied. Recently, he had been well-behaved and secretly helped the third prince recruit soldiers. He really didn't cause any trouble. If the emperor found out that the third prince raised a private army, it wouldn't be so easy. Then quickly enter the palace. Don't let imperial father wait for too long. Lu Qing, I'm warning you. You better do as you said and not cause any trouble. If you really provoke imperial father, this princess can't save you. Tang Shi's words were full of disdain and contempt, and it was in front of the eunuch. Lu Qing was furious and his face was burning. He quickly followed the eunuch. On the way, Lu Qing asked several times what was going on. However, the eunuch didn't reveal anything, so he could only give up. When he was directly brought to the throne room, he was a little dumbfounded and at a loss as he reminisced. This was the second time he came to the throne room. The last time was more than 10 years ago. At that time, he was in the limelight. The emperor personally picked him as the top scholar, and everyone envied him. When he arrived at the throne room, Lu Qing saw many familiar people and his heart was beating like a drum. He limped in and knelt down to greet the emperor. The emperor didn't let him rise immediately. Instead, he asked, "Lu Qing, someone accused you of abandoning your wife and child. For glory and wealth, you didn't hesitate to send people to kill your wife and child. Today, I summoned you to the palace to hear it with my own ears." At that moment, Lu Qing almost collapsed to the ground. His whole body was trembling. He was glad that he was now kneeling and not standing. If he was standing, anyone would be able to see that his legs were trembling and weak. His mind was blank and his heart was in a mess. This matter had already happened a long time ago. How could it suddenly be exposed? The matter of him sending people to kill Lin Yuexiang was done very secretly. Those people were his trusted aides. Every month, he spent a large sum of money on them. They shouldn't betray him. His mind spun quickly. He absolutely could not admit to killing his wife and child. However, he couldn't hide the fact that he had married and had children. What should he say to clear his name? What should he say to get the emperor to let him go? What should he say to win the sympathy of the crowd? Chapter 1527. Your Majesty, please forgive me. Lu Qing said. Lu Qing does have a wife and children. This is the truth. Lu Qing cannot defend himself. The emperor was surprised. He looked down at Lu Qing and asked, "Then, you admit to deceiving the emperor?" Lu Qing admits it. Seeing this, all the civil and military officials were puzzled. Lu Qing admitted it just like that? They felt that it was different from what they had expected. They looked at Lin Yuexiang and her son, who were standing at the side calmly. They felt that there was more to this show. Tang was lips curled up. Her eyes were fixed on Lu Qing. This Lu Qing, at the crucial moment, always came up with some insidious schemes. Between Tang Shi and the original owner, at most, there was a battle of jealousy. There wasn't much hatred. In her previous life, the original owner and Lu Qing became a couple. Later on, Tang Shi fell in love with another person, but that person died early. When the original owner met with misfortune and was locked up in a nunnery, she finally had the chance to be with Lu Qing. At that time, although Lu Qing was middle-aged, he was high-spirited. Even though Tang Shi was a princess, she was obedient to Lu Qing. Lu Qing was above everyone else. He had countless concubines. In this life, when Lu Qing was in danger, the person he framed became Tang Shi. But, was it so easy? Over the years, Tang Shi had always avoided her sharp edge. She didn't go against her and lived her life behind closed doors. She was much smarter than the third prince. Tang Shi, who didn't like Lu Qing, wouldn't be schemed against by Lu Qing. Lu Qing admits to having a wife and children. But Lu Qing doesn't admit to sending people to kill his wife and children. At this time, Lu Qing raised his head. His face was full of tears. When the civil and military officials heard his choked voice, they felt that something was wrong. Lin Yuexiang saw Lu Qing's appearance and sneered in her heart. She silently stood at the side and watched Lu Qing's performance. If it was the vulgar woman in the past, seeing Lu Qing like this, she might not be able to keep her cool and immediately confront him. Although Lu Yuji was angry, she didn't show it. LV Yufan, on the other hand, was even more composed. Ever since his rebirth, he had been thinking of killing Lu Qing every day. He was also anxious at this moment. Lu Qing had seen the three of them just now, but he didn't recognize them. This was the real joke. He wanted to see who Lu Qing could fool this time. Then tell me what's going on. As for the emperor, he was even more patient. His voice was neither happy nor angry. It was impossible to tell what he meant. Lu Qing couldn't figure it out, but he thought that his crying performance would make people suspect the person who accused him of killing his wife and children. I didn't expect that they were still killed. Lu Qing's face was full of tears and snot. He looked dazed and helpless. If he didn't know that Lin Yuexiang and her children were his wife and children, the ministers present, including the emperor, might really believe his nonsense. Originally, the civil and military officials thought that there was an inside story. After hearing this sentence, their faces were full of mischief. This Lu Qing probably didn't recognize his wife and children, right? Interesting, really interesting. The emperor almost laughed out loud. It was very interesting. His wife and children were standing in the throne room. He could see them at a glance. Lu Qing was actually crying because he lost his wife and children. Who was he acting for? Did he really think that he was old and blind? Lu Qing felt that something was wrong, but he still had to continue. Chapter 1528. I really didn't expect it. I did as the second princess said. Even if she hates me now, I was afraid that my wife and children would be in danger, so I didn't dare to secretly go back to see them. It's been more than 10 years. I miss them every day. I thought that they would still be alive and well. I didn't expect that the second princess didn't keep her word. Lu Qing continued to cry bitterly. If it weren't for his wife and children standing by the side, all of them radiating radiance, they would definitely be moved by this man's infatuation. Now they only wanted to say, "Who are you trying to fool?" Tangwa wanted to laugh out loud. She raised her head and looked at the emperor. The emperor happened to be holding back his laughter and looked at her. Then the father and daughter silently looked away. They couldn't laugh. If they laughed out loud, it would attract Lu Qing's attention. There would be no good show to watch. LV Yufan's mouth trembled. This emperor, this eldest princess, how come he didn't realize that these two people were so interesting in his previous life? At this time, Lu Qing was like a clown in everyone's eyes. He was affectionately acting out the pain of losing his wife and children to make them happy. Lin Yuexiang was wearing a dignified official's robe. She calmly stood on the side. There was also a minister who was familiar with her. He whispered, "Official Lin, is he sick?" "I don't know. This official is not familiar with him." "Oh, even children are not familiar with each other." This was also the first time he saw him. The emperor suppressed all of his laughter. His voice was still dignified. "What do you mean? Your Majesty, Lu Qing has been wrongly accused." For better or worse, Lu Qing had studied hard for 10 years and was lucky enough to pass the exam. Why didn't he stand high up in the imperial court and instead chose to become the second princess's son-in-law? It's all because the second princess threatened Lu Qing with the lives of his wife and children. She also plotted to make herself fall into the water. Lu Qing had no choice but to go down to save her. If Lu Qing didn't agree, Lu Qing didn't care about his own life. He just didn't want to see his wife and children die. In the end, he had no choice but to agree to the second princess's conditions. The emperor was really angry. Although Tangxi had been flirtatious in recent years and had secretly kept a gigolo, if Tangxi didn't cause any trouble, she would lock herself up in her princess residence and play by herself. Lu Qing could tolerate the fact that she didn't report him, and he couldn't be bothered to care. Which dynasty didn't have a few romantic princesses? Tang Shi and Tang Zhao, these two children, had always been under his watch. He knew exactly what he had done. Lu Qing, you said that the second princess threatened you. Do you have any evidence? Hearing the emperor's question, Lu Qing panicked for a moment. Chapter 1529. Tang Shi had never liked her, and she didn't like her either. If she could destroy Tang Shi this time, she would become Lu Qing's favorite person. Tang Shi chuckled and looked at Tang Gua. She whispered, "No wonder Imperial sister was willing to let her go. She is a scourge." Imperial father, Wan Zhu, is not someone by this son's side. Not long after entering the princess residence, she has been serving by Lu Qing's side. This son believes that her confession is biased. Then the other maids should count, right? Lu Qing looked at Tang Shi with resentment, as if she had really killed his wife and child. Tang Shi didn't know that Lin Yuexiang was Lu Qing's wife. Since Lu Qing wanted to put the blame on her today, she didn't want this decoration who often caused her trouble. Count, of course it counts. Then, Lu Qing turned around and looked at the rows of maids. Most of them were favored by him. He usually treated them well. At the critical moment, it was time for them to play a role. Xiangcao, Yunyi, Hongzhu. Lu Qing called out their names one by one. You must tell the truth. Did the princess threaten me with my wife and child? Was that why I had to marry the princess? Some of you must know that the princess sent people to kill my wife and child, right? In fact, Lu Qing was still very nervous. Although he had a good relationship with these maids and bought all the good things for them, he didn't treat them badly at all. He was sure that these maids would say what he wanted. But this was a matter of life and death. Who wouldn't be nervous? The civil and military officials were also very interested in this show. How long would Lu Qing act alone? You can tell the truth, the emperor said. He didn't have much patience with Lu Qing. This jerk, how did he choose him and choose him as the top scholar? The maids exchanged glances with one another before speaking. Replying to your majesty, second princess never knew that second prince consort had a wife and child. It's even more impossible for her to use his wife and child to force him into marriage. This servant also didn't hear that second princess sent people to kill second prince consort's wife and child. All of the maids that Lu Qing had touched said the same thing. Lu Qing's thinking was too simple. Tang Shi was able to let these maids serve him without worry. Didn't she have something on him? Tang Shi was different from Tang Gua. Tang Gua had been doted on since she was a child. She was just an ordinary second princess. Whatever she needed, she had to fight for it herself. If the people in the residence were not at ease, would she be able to use it? The families of these maids were all in her hands. Not to mention that she didn't do those things, even if she did. Would the maid dare to say that she did it in public? How could Lu Qing's small favors be more important than their family? Lu Qing was dumbfounded. Why was it different from what he had imagined? Chapter 1530. He had almost forgotten the names of LV Yufan and LV Yuji. But when these three names were mentioned together, he remembered. Weren't these the names of his children? Lin Yuexiang gently nodded. I am Lin Yuexiang. Are you surprised? No. How can you be Lin Yuexiang? How can you be Lin Yuexiang? Lu Qing slumped to the ground. His clothes were drenched in sweat, and he had no strength left in his body. Especially when he remembered that the little divine doctor was his daughter, this year's top scholar was his son, and the first female official of Bei Xia was his wife. Lu Qing couldn't believe it. How could it be like this? Lin Yuexiang is just a village woman. How could she become an official of the imperial court? Lu Qing lay on the ground and muttered to himself. He couldn't believe it. And his children, how could they have such achievements? How could the people he used to look down on be so glorious? They were already standing at a place he needed to look up to. Thus, everything he had said earlier had become a joke. The people in the imperial court just watched silently. He was like a clown performing. Your Majesty, the first thing this official wants to do today is to sue Lu Qing and seek justice for us. Secondly, she paused and said, I want to divorce Lu Qing. How can you divorce? Tang Gua interrupted. All the civil and military officials, including the emperor, looked at her. They didn't think that this eldest princess wanted to speak for Lu Qing. Sure enough, she said, Lu Qing has made such a big mistake. Not to mention the crime of deceiving the emperor, he abandoned his wife and children and even planned to defend to the death. If the news of a divorce spread, it wouldn't be good. Why don't you divorce your husband? Tangguo winked at Lin Yuexiang. Official Lin, you are an official of the imperial court. How can you divorce such a person? Divorce your husband. Divorce your husband is the most suitable. System. Host. Lin Yuexiang is going to be ruined by you. Look at Lu Qing's expression. You must be angering him to death. Lin Yuexiang reacted. Her eyes lit up as she said, Yes, Your Highness, the first princess is right. This subject wants to divorce my husband. Imperial father, I also want to divorce my husband. Tang Shi added, the prince consort is heartless and unrighteous. He's afraid of abandoning his wife and children and even tried to frame me. I can't afford to have such a prince consort. The emperor's forehead twitched, but he still allowed it. Tangguo waved her hand, and Ingzhu took out a brush, ink, paper, and inkstone. Everyone in the imperial court was speechless. It turned out that the first princess had already prepared all of this. Lin Yuexiang did not hesitate to write the divorce papers. Her hands were trembling. It was her first time divorcing her husband. She was really excited. Since ancient times, no one had ever written a letter of divorce in front of so many important officials of the imperial court, right? And it was a letter of divorce. When Lin Yuexiang finished writing, Tang Shi also came over. Imperial sister, let me borrow your brush and ink. I'll definitely thank you in the future. With Tangguo's nod, Tang Shi also wrote a letter of divorce. After she finished, she threw the letter in Lu Qing's face. From now on, her life would be free and easy. She could have as many gigolos as she wanted. As long as she was obedient and did not cause trouble, her imperial father and imperial sister would not care about what she did. What dream of becoming the eldest princess? She had thought about it a long time ago. She did not have her imperial sister's talent and experience. She could not be a role model for women. It was better to live a free and easy life. Her third imperial brother was not as good as the crown prince. With his cowardly attitude, there was no hope. Chapter 1531. Now that there was peace and prosperity, there was no need for the princess to marry. She should be satisfied with such a good time. If her third imperial brother really succeeded the throne, would there be such a prosperous era? Obviously, there was no. Lu Qing was thrown the divorce letter in the face. He only felt that the light letter hit his face painfully. Then, Lin Yuexiang walked in front of him and gently put the divorce letter in front of him. Now you and I have nothing to do with each other. No one will stop you from climbing up the ranks. These words were very ironic to Lu Qing. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to survive today. How could these people be so hateful and want to kill him? Looking at the person in front of him, her movements were not the person in his memory. Thinking of the humiliation Lin Yuexiang gave him some time ago, Lu Qing was furious. Between the lightning and thunder, Lu Qing didn't know where he got the strength. He suddenly burst out, holding a piece of broken jade in his hand, and slashed towards Lin Yuexiang's neck. The people in the imperial court were in an uproar. They wanted to stop it, but they couldn't because they were too far away. Who would have thought that Lu Qing would suddenly attack Lin Yuexiang? Seeing that Lin Yuexiang's neck was about to be slashed, Lin Yuexiang raised her foot and kicked Lu Qing's wrist. She landed steadily on the ground with a backflip. As for Lu Qing's wrist, it had already been broken by her kick, causing him to scream in pain. Come, take Lu Qing down, the emperor ordered. Immediately, people came up and pressed Lu Qing down. He didn't defend himself, and he couldn't defend himself. The most important thing was that Lin Yuexiang's kick broke his wrist. All the civil and military officials stared in shock at Lin Yuexiang, who clearly looked very thin and weak. They didn't expect that this little girl not only knew poetry, calligraphy, and painting, but also knew farming and martial arts. No wonder he was appointed as an official by the emperor. Afterwards, Lu Qing was sentenced to be paraded through the streets for 3 days. Afterwards, Lin Yuexiang personally supervised the execution. Before the execution, Tanghua asked someone to feed Lu Qing a golden millet dream. If he didn't let Lu Qing see the glory of his previous life, he wouldn't be so unwilling to die in this life. As expected, after using unrealized dream, Lu Qing's eyes were filled with malevolence as he paraded through the streets. He wanted nothing more than to devour all the onlookers. His life was supposed to be like a dream. Why? Why was it different from the dream? How was it different? Lu Qing pondered silently. Before he was dragged to be beheaded, he saw Tanghua again. She was standing on top of a pavilion, looking at him with a smile. Beside her was a man in a spotless white robe. She was different. Tanghua was different. Lu Qing thought it through. Everything came from her. Was she the one who changed everything? At that moment, Lu Qing looked at Tanghua with resentment. Host, he actually dared to glare at you. Glare. He's about to die. Lu Qing's eyes widened in disbelief. What did he just hear? Why was he able to hear her words clearly even though they were so far away? Also, what was the voice that was talking to her? It definitely wasn't Yun Buxiu. With this confusion, Lu Qing was dragged to the execution ground. Tanghua's conversation with the system was purposely revealed to Lu Qing. She wanted him to die unwillingly and confusedly. Lu Qing was dragged to the execution ground. He raised his head and looked at Lin Yuexiang, whose face was full of dignity, and shouted, I really regret not sending more people to kill you all. Lin Yuexiang looked at him expressionlessly, not saying a word. Chapter 1532. Standing on either side of Lin Yuexiang were LV Yuji and LV Yufan. They were also expressionless. They had waited for this day for a long time. Yuji, Yufan, I'm your father. Do you want to watch your father die today? Looking at the shining and sharp guillotine, Lu Qing panicked and started to shout. He didn't want to die. He really didn't want to die. If he was given another chance, he definitely wouldn't lose so miserably. He should be an extremely high official, second only to one person and above everyone else. How could he be so miserable? No matter how Lu Qing shouted, no one paid attention to him. Because of the things he had done, countless people despised him. The surrounding commoners couldn't help but throw many rotten vegetables at him. Her Highness hates Lu Qing. Why didn't she come? Lin Yuexiang asked LV Yuji in a low voice. LV Yuji was speechless. She also replied in a low voice. Her Highness said that this kind of bloody and cruel place is not suitable for someone as noble and beautiful as her. LV Yufan and Lin Yuexiang looked at each other. Her Highness really knew how to lie through her teeth. Lord Lin, it's noon. We can carry out the execution. LV Yufan cupped her hands towards Lin Yuexiang and said with a slight smile on her face. Lin Yuexiang's expression also became serious. She glanced at Lu Qing, who was still shouting crazily and didn't know what to say. She only said one word, execute. The executioner pressed Lu Qing down and fixed him in place. His hand raised, and the guillotine fell. A stream of blood splattered far away. Lu Qing finally stopped making a sound. Lin Yuexiang and her son finally let out a sigh of relief. They looked at each other and left together. From then on, Lu Qing no longer existed in their lives. Lu Qing died. Tanghua's peaceful life for half a year was suddenly broken by the sudden appearance of a person. At this moment, this woman was standing in front of her. She was also wearing an untainted white robe. Her appearance was also somewhat dusty, and her figure was thin and weak. My name is Yun Huayin. I'm Big Brother Buxiu's adopted sister. When Godfather died, he asked Big Brother Buxiu to take care of me for the rest of my life. Yun Huayin took a deep breath and said, You are the eldest princess of Bei Xia. You have a noble status, and there are countless men in the world for you to choose from. Please don't pester my brother Buxiu. I can only leave him alone. System. Host. Love rival. Not a love rival. Tanghua's tone was indifferent as she said, Yun Buxiu and I are not engaged. We are not married, so we are not. System. All right. She could tell that the host really didn't care about this woman's appearance. Yun Huayin, right? Tanghua gently raised her eyebrows. This is my princess residence. Not just anyone can enter. You can leave now. I'm not leaving. If you don't agree to leave Brother Bushio, I'll stay here forever. Tangua waved her hand. Throw this person out for me. If she barges in again, I'll have to consider changing a group of people. Yuan Huayan's eyes widened. Before she could react, she was held down by 2 guards. They really directly threw Yuan Huayan out from the wall. Is this how the princess of Xia treats her guests? Tangua pursed her lips and smiled. I've never heard of guests climbing over walls. Only thieves would climb over walls. If you do it again, you might lose your life. Don't you dare. If you hurt me, Brother Bushio will not forgive you. Do I need his forgiveness? Tangua's slightly cold voice sounded. Yuan Huayan, don't provoke me again. You can't afford to. Chapter 1533. Yuan Huayan was thrown out of the wall by the 2 guards of the princess's residence, and she fell on her butt. The passers-by were surprised to see a person being thrown out. When they heard the conversation between Yuan Huayan and Tangua, they immediately understood that this woman had offended the eldest princess. Who is this woman? From her words, she doesn't seem to be from Xia, and she was thrown out by the eldest princess. She must have done something bad and angered the eldest princess. Otherwise, why would she be thrown out? The eldest princess has always been a reasonable person. If she didn't offend her, she wouldn't be so rude. Yuan Huayan couldn't listen anymore. She stomped her feet, got up from the ground, and turned to leave. Ingzhu carefully observed Tangua's expression. Seeing that her expression was normal, she heaved a sigh of relief. Your Highness, when the Grand Tutor returns, should we send someone to inform him? There's no need for that. Yuan Huayan will definitely find out where he went. She will find him before he returns to the residence. Tangua slowly sipped her tea. Let him settle such a small matter himself. Huh. Ingzhu was surprised. Her Highness really didn't mean to be angry. Your Highness, you're not angry? Why would I be angry? Ingzhu said softly. This woman of unknown origin seems to have a special relationship with the Grand Tutor. She spoke rudely to your Highness. I thought your Highness would be angry with the Grand Tutor. The Grand Tutor mentioned her to me and explained the relationship between them. Your Highness trusts the Grand Tutor so much? Tangua raised her head and smiled. He won't lie to me. If he dares to lie to me, we won't bring him along the next time we travel to other countries. Let's see if he won't cry. Ingzhu didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but at the same time, she understood that a mere Yuan Huayan would not be able to shake the trust that the Grand Tutor had built in her Highness' heart all these years. But she also understood that if the Grand Tutor continued to pester Yuan Huayan, her Highness could only coldly and heartlessly throw him away. System. What a pitiful man. Hopefully, he wouldn't let down the host's great trust. In this world, there were only a handful of people who could gain the host's trust and travel around the world. Dear host, do you want me to monitor what Yuan Huayan will say to Yuan Bushio? Do you want me to broadcast it live? No need. I'm not interested. The sun gradually set, and the horizon was covered with a layer of beautiful red clouds. Tangua was leisurely sitting on a rattan chair, eating grapes while enjoying the rare scenery in front of her. Ingzhu stood by the side. She really couldn't figure out what her master was thinking. However, she would never delve deeper into it and recklessly speculate about His Highness's intentions. She suddenly thought of Wanju's fate. Wanju liked to make decisions on his own. For the sake of his own little thoughts, he was finally abandoned by His Highness. Later on, he helped Lu Qing to give false testimony and committed the crime of deceiving the emperor. On account of the fact that she used to be His Highness's head palace maid, the emperor gave her a white silk scarf. She heard that before Wanju was strangled to death, he even shouted that he was forced by Lu Qing. Seeing that no one cared about her, she called for His Highness. Her face was pale and her body was trembling as she begged His Highness to save her life. Wanju's fate today was all because of him. Ingzhu didn't sympathize with him at all, and even came to a conclusion. Chapter 1534. As the head palace maid of His Highness, she should serve His Highness well. Naturally, she should not have too many thoughts. Seeing that the sky is getting dark, the colorful clouds in the sky are about to disappear. Suddenly, a person jumps up from the top of the wall. That person's white clothes are fluttering, and he only pauses on the wall for a moment. As if seeing that Tang Guo is still there, he gently lands in front of her. "I've made your highness wait for a long time." Tang Guo raises her head and asks, "How did you know that I was waiting for you and not enjoying the beautiful scenery on the horizon?" "So your highness was enjoying the beautiful scenery on the horizon. It just so happens that Bushio brought the newly brewed fruit wine yesterday. I don't know if I can have a drink with your highness while waiting for the moonlight to appear." "What kind of fruit wine is it this time?" "It's only brewed from grapes. The color is ruddy and clear. It just so happens that Bushio brought 2 colored glass cups. It's best to use the colored glass cups to hold the red grapefruit wine." Ingzhu carefully raises her head. Sure enough, she sees that Yun Bushio is holding a tray. On the tray, there is a wine pot made of white jade. Presumably, the wine in this wine pot must be the wine brewed from grapes. In addition, there are also 2 exquisite and beautiful colored glass cups. Yun Bushio puts the wine pot and cups on the stone table in front of Tang Guo and pours a cup for her first. Sure enough, when the red liquid is poured into the colored glass cup, it's very beautiful. Especially when the moon slowly climbs up, the silvery white moonlight sprinkles down, making the 2 half-filled colored glass cups even more beautiful. State Preceptor is a person who enjoys life very much. You even found such a rare colored glass cup for me. Tang Guo holds the cup and gently takes a small sip. The taste is not bad. It's good that your highness likes it. Yun Bushio has been observing Tang Guo's expression. Seeing that she is not angry, he is slightly relieved, but also has some indescribable feelings. "Today, your highness has been wronged. I didn't expect that my adopted sister would come to your highness's mansion to make a scene. I didn't suffer any grievances. I am the princess." With a command, she was thrown over the wall by my guards. When Yun Bushio heard her words, she smiled and said, "Your highness, what else does the imperial tutor want to say? Don't take my adopted younger sister's words seriously. I hope that your highness will only believe what comes out of your mouth and not believe what you hear from others." Tang Guo gently raised her head with a slight smile on her face. That pair of beautiful and clear eyes looked straight at Yun Bushio. It was just an ordinary glance, but it made Yun Bushio's heart beat wildly. She almost couldn't control it. Her heart was filled with emotions. When I believe in someone, I believe in that person. Even if thousands of people say that this person is not good, as long as I don't see that he is not good, he is good. State Preceptor, in the past, I would never believe a person's words, no matter how convincing they are. These sincere words had relieved Yun Bushio of all her worries. The emotions that were about to spurt out from his heart stopped beating wildly. He only felt that there was a trickle in his heart. It was warm and sweet. This afternoon, after meeting Yun Huayin, he heard a lot of things from her. Actually, he didn't listen to what Yun Huayin wanted to say at all. He only heard that Yun Huayin had barged into the princess's mansion. "Your Highness, I heard that you were planning to travel around the world for 5 years. Will you bring Bushio along?" "I will." Chapter 1535. The emperor heard that Tang Guo was going to travel around the various countries to observe the local customs and customs of each country, as well as their soil. While she was at it, she was going to visit the various countries and make friends with them. He only sighed and allowed it. This was a good thing. He was just a little reluctant. He, Guo had contributed so much to Bei Xia as a woman. It should be recorded in the annals of history. The empress stayed by Tang Guo's side until her eyes were red from crying. She held her hand and refused to let go, expressing her reluctance. She was going for 5 years. How could a woman who had been pampered since she was young wander around and live such a hard life? What if she encountered some natural disaster along the way? Tang Ji was also reluctant, but he did not persuade her. He knew that his persuasion was useless. His imperial father had already allowed it, so he could only silently choose to support it. He could not do what his sister could do, nor could he do it. The only thing he could do was to learn from his imperial father how to govern the country, so that he would not let down her good intentions. If he still could not continue the prosperous era after she did this, then he would really be a mediocre person. When the people heard that their eldest princess was going to travel around the various countries to observe their customs and environment in exchange for species that Xia did not have, they were all grateful with tears in their eyes. On the day Tang Guo left in the carriage, the entire imperial city's people went to send her off. Even Tang Shi was here. Beside Tang Shi, there were two rather good-looking men. She looked at Tang Guo with a complicated expression. People like Imperial Sister are like the sun in the sky that can illuminate the entire earth. People like us who only enjoy the warmth of the sun cannot compare to her. Imperial Sister, I wish you a safe return. After going through so much, from the jealousy and hatred towards her imperial sister to the relief now, Tang Shi understood a lot. Xia's days were getting better and better. Now, many countries wanted to import crop seeds from them. Everyone in Xia was well-fed and warm, and their soldiers were strong. Perhaps for many years to come, no one would dare to have any ideas about them. If there was no war, these princesses' days would be better. Once there was war, regardless of whether they could fight or not, the princesses would inevitably be sent to political marriages. As for her royal sister, she used another method to make the northern summer countries so powerful that other countries did not dare to make an enemy out of them. She admired him and could no longer be jealous. I just can't stay here. I want to go out for a walk, Tang was said with a smile. Tang Shi almost rolled her eyes in front of everyone. The last time he left, he brought back Lin Yuexiang and her two children. Xia's first female official, a top scholar, a godly doctor, and some rare crops in the wild? Now that it had been 5 years, who knew how many things he would bring back? Tang Guo's carriage started to move slowly. Tang Shi kept looking at the back of the carriage until it finally disappeared from her sight. Your Highness looks a little sad. Now that the first princess has left, no one will be able to steal your limelight. Isn't that a good thing? Hearing the man's words, Tang Shi slapped him in the face. You can get lost now. The man covered his face in disbelief. He didn't understand at all. Wasn't it just a sentence? Why was he beaten up by the second princess? Tang Shi glanced at the man. You short-sighted thing. Don't try to sow discord in front of this princess. This princess is far from imperial sister. How can we compare? Ignorant. Chapter 1536. A man who was short-sighted and tried to sow discord did not make Tang Shi change her flirtatious habits. She loved beauty. In the past, the more good-looking a man was, the more she was interested in him. Now, she preferred a man who was good-looking and did not need to be too smart, but had to be tactful and sensible. Only then would she keep him by her side. As a result, her gigolos had decreased by more than half, but those who stayed were extremely obedient. Her days were more comfortable. As for her relationship with the third prince, it had been broken many years ago. The third prince seemed to dislike her as a sister. He thought that she was a flirtatious person and would not be able to achieve great things. After Lu Qing was beheaded, the third prince even wanted to introduce someone to her. He wanted to rope this person in. Tang Shi rejected him on the spot. She still wanted to live a peaceful life and did not want to be dragged down by others. Now that she, as a princess, had avoided the political marriage, her days were much better. How could she be willing to be used by the third prince just because of her blood relationship with him? Her father, the crown prince, and her elder sister were not fools. Because of this, she even kindly advised the third prince to behave himself and not cause any trouble. The third prince said on the spot, "It's just a woman's view. I didn't expect you to be such a greedy person. Tang Shi, you will regret it." Tang Shi did not know if she would regret it in the future, but she was living a good life now. During Tang Guo's tour of the various countries, it was not peaceful. This was not peaceful, but it did not mean that there were many dangers along the way. It was that Yun Huayin was a clingy person who would suddenly appear in front of them. Every time Yun Huayin appeared, She would complain to Tanghua with a face full of complaints. Otherwise, she would point at Tanghua and say something. When Tanghua was annoyed, she would get someone to throw her out. Then, Yun Huayin would explode and look for Yun Buxiu on the spot. When she saw Yun Buxiu, she wanted to throw herself into Yun Buxiu's arms and cry pitifully. Unexpectedly, Yun Buxiu saw that the situation was not right and quickly jumped up high. She turned around and jumped behind Tanghua. She even whispered to Tanghua, "Your Highness, I'm also considered one of your people. At this time, you have to protect me." When Yun Huayin saw how close Yun Buxiu and Tanghua were, she stomped her feet angrily. "Brother Buxiu," she asked someone to throw me away just now. "Aren't you going to help me vent my anger?" Yun Buxiu replied, "Sister, don't appear in front of His Highness. If His Highness can't see you, he naturally won't ask anyone to throw you away. This matter can be easily resolved. I'm just a lowly imperial tutor while Her Highness is the princess of the northern summer country. Her status is noble, and I have to obey Her Highness' orders." It would have been better if he didn't say this. Now that he said it, Yun Huayin was even angrier. "Brother Buxiu, why do you have to do this? He has been with her for so many years, but she didn't get together with you. It's obvious that she doesn't like you at all. Why are you so dead set on her?" "Sister, His Highness can live without me, but I can't live without His Highness. I'm willing to accompany His Highness, and His Highness doesn't treat me as badly as you say. Only I can experience His Highness's kindness to me. You can't understand." Yun Buxiu said, "Sister, I only have brotherly feelings for you. Back then, I only promised Godfather to treat your illness. Now that you've recovered, I'll treat it as repaying Godfather's kindness. In your words just now, I don't like you either. Why do you keep following me? This won't end well." Chapter 1537. I don't care. Godfather said that you have to promise to take care of me for the rest of my life. Yun Buxiu stole a glance at Tanghua. Seeing that her expression was normal, he said, "I didn't promise. I only promised to cure your illness." Yun Huayin clenched her teeth and didn't say anything else. After a moment of silence, she turned her gaze to Tanghua. "Tanghua, Brother Buxiu is so good. You're not worth it. He likes you so much, but you're indifferent and don't want to be with him. I've never seen such a cold-hearted person like you. Let me tell you, I won't take this lying down. One day, I'll make Brother Buxiu come back to my side." System. In your dreams? Once you're in the hands of the host, how can you escape? It was impossible. After that day, Yun Huayin didn't appear again. Tanghua didn't care about this person. She treated her as if she never appeared. Yun Buxiu was also very tactful. He didn't mention Yun Huayin at all. Just as he said, he had already repaid his godfather's kindness. He wouldn't bother with Yun Huayin anymore. On the other hand, His Highness didn't blame Yun Huayin for venting her anger on him. He felt a little happy. System. This guy is getting easier to satisfy. Maybe it's because he's been through too much hardship. Just a little sugar makes him feel sweet. Without Yun Huayin's entanglement, Tanghua's journey was much faster. During this period, she visited 20 countries, both big and small. The people of these countries had long heard that the eldest princess of Beixia was going to travel around the countries. They had been looking forward to her arrival. Establishing a peaceful friendship with the northern summer would only be beneficial to them. In the 5th year, Tanghua fulfilled her wish and visited all the countries in her plan. When she returned to the imperial city, it was even more prosperous. When the citizens heard that she was coming back, they waited outside the city very early. Seeing her pulling carriages of things behind her, that familiar carriage made them feel a little teary. Tanghua had originally decided to come back in the 6th year, but the emperor's health couldn't take it anymore, so she had to bring it forward. In these few years, she had actually encountered many dangers. Those who wanted to kill her and kidnap her all died miserably in the end. By the 4th year, those dangers were basically gone. It was as if the other party already understood that no matter how many people they sent, they would not be able to take her life. Raising an assassin required a lot of money. Every time, there would be no return. It was simply unbearable. Tangwa hurriedly rushed to the imperial palace and met the emperor. She told him everything that she had encountered and seen over the years. Even if he talked for 10 days to half a month, he wouldn't be able to finish everything. Tangwa only talked about the important points, and the empress accompanied her. She held the emperor's hand and listened together. The emperor's aged face was full of smiles. From time to time, Gray would say, "Guo is really awesome. Guo doesn't belong to men. Who said that women are not as good as men?" Guo had done something that no one had ever done before. Crown Prince Tang Ji's eyes were red. Before his younger sister came back, his imperial father didn't have any energy at all. He couldn't eat and almost couldn't speak. Now that he had said so much in one breath, it could only be the final radiance of the setting sun. In the end, the emperor took Tangwa's hand and patted it gently. "Guo, Imperial Father wants to thank you. You made Imperial Father an emperor who started the Golden Age. My life was not in vain. You have always been Imperial Father's good Guo." Tangwa paused and looked into the emperor's penetrating eyes. She said, "Imperial Father is also Imperial Son's good Imperial Father. Thank you for your help." Chapter 1538. The emperor left with a smile. Not long after, the crown prince, Tang Ji, ascended the throne. On the day of the ascension, there was a small disturbance. It was the third prince, Tang Zhao, who appeared with many soldiers to usurp the throne. He came with a strong momentum, but he found that things were different from what he had imagined. His small number of people were instantly washed away like a broken dam. Seeing his people fall down one by one, the third prince's eyes widened in disbelief. Tang Shi stood in the position of the imperial family, and his expression was somewhat indescribable. What kind of courage did this idiot have to think that he could seize the throne with 1,000 soldiers? After so many years, he still didn't understand? "I can't accept this." The third prince's eyes were about to split open as he was tied up and dragged down. "Father has just passed away. Today is a good day for me to ascend the throne. It's not good to see blood." Pass down the order. Imprison the third prince in the mansion. Without permission, he is not allowed to leave the mansion for the rest of his life. It was impossible to kill his own brother as soon as he ascended the throne. Tangji was not that stupid. No one cared about such a small mistake, and the ascension ceremony continued. When Tangji became the emperor, the first thing he did was to confer titles. Everyone who followed him was promoted. Tangwa naturally became the eldest princess. Tangji conferred the title, Feng Shuo. It meant that she brought a bumper harvest to Beixia every year, changed the living environment of everyone in Beixia, and allowed everyone in Beixia to have enough food and clothing. Princess Feng Shuo was the legend of the Northern Summer Kingdom. After that, Tang Ji rewarded his obedient younger brothers and sisters. State Preceptor Yun Buxiu was still the state preceptor. One day, Tang Ji found Yun Buxiu and asked directly, "State Preceptor, your 20 years of office is about to expire. When are you leaving?" Until now, Tang Ji still couldn't stand Yun Buxiu. Every day, he hoped that he would get lost and not stick to his sister all day. Now that he was the emperor, his sister naturally had to be doted on by him. What did an outsider mean by showing affection in front of his sister every day? "Your Majesty, I want to extend the term," Yun Buxiu said with a straight face. "I still have some skills. Not only do I know how to tell the weather, but I also know some medical skills." He looked as if he would never be able to find such a cheap and practical state preceptor again if he left. Tang Ji was so angry that he laughed. "Extension period?" Tang Ji frowned. "How long do you plan to extend it?" This guy's skin was really thick. Actually, he also understood that Yun Buxiu's existence was still quite important. Natural disasters could be avoided, but natural disasters were hard to predict. With Yun Buxiu's divination, they could do a lot of things. It was all thanks to Yun Buxiu that the various disasters that had happened over the years could be minimized. Until death. Tangji, can he say get lost? Yun Buxiu returned home happily. She changed into a clean set of clothes and climbed over the wall to Tangwa's courtyard. Sure enough, She was there. Your Highness, His Majesty asked me when I would be leaving today. From the looks of it, he thought that Zhang Xian wouldn't be able to tell, and he nearly asked him to scram. What did the state preceptor say? Yun Buxiu revealed a smile and said rather proudly, I said that I wanted to extend the term and that I was important. His Majesty allowed it. How long did you extend it for? Tanghua followed the topic and asked. Yun Buxiu was very satisfied. Her Highness clearly knew, but she still didn't expose him. How could he give up such a good life? I said until death. Yun Buxiu's deep eyes met Tanghua's smile. Hearing him say, until death, the emperor's eyes almost ate him up.